Hi, babe. Welcome to the Horror Babe Show. I'm your host, Chelsea Beller. Today's guest is Mary O'Neill, who wrote and starred in the anthology horror Tenants. Mary and I talk about the parallels of comedy and horror, accountability writers groups, creating independent films with the most talented people, and loads more. Let's tune in to my conversation with Mary. Hi, babe. Welcome to the Horror Babe Show. I'm your host, Chelsea Beller, and today we have Mary O'Neill on the show.
Hey, babe.
Mary wrote and starred in the anthology film Tenants, where she is the star. She encounters all these different tenants within her building, and once we meet them, we get a slice of their life, but things are going horribly wrong. Tenants is currently circuiting film festivals.
We're done with our film festival run for the most part. I think there was a couple that our distributor, Cranked Up Films, kind of gave us like you can go ahead and do that. So it's currently available on basically any VOD platform.
Cool.
We'll be headed to a streamer in March. Can't say which one yet, but that's the goal. I believe it's March.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So have people outside of your circle seen it yet? Outside of like the film festivals?
Yeah. You know, with VOD, it's sometimes hard to pick up traction. It's a little easier if you're just on a streamer because you stumble across it. But yeah, you know, we've gotten some really good feedback. Was listed as like the hidden gem on a couple of lists that was really cool.
That's
so we were happy for that.
exciting.
Yeah. Our goal was, you figure you've got the horror fans. So we wanted it to be appealing to a wider audience as well.
It's like thriller meets horror meets drama meets sci-fi. So I feel like in that sense it really does appeal to the masses, which is so great. And I don't even know how you begin to create something like that.
It was it was a bit of a struggle. Like, we wanted to be able to play in all of those different kind of subgenres while still having it feel like a cohesive film.
Right.
Because in the initial production, early like pre-production stages, we were like, we could do completely like balls to the wall, just kind of like each story a little bit more like Creepshow. You have a simple wraparound. They're not connected to one another. Right. You could really lean into subgenres. But I don't like that kind of thing. Like, I much prefer my anthologies to be more trick or treat, where, you know, there's an interweaving story. So I convinced Buzz Wallach, who's also my husband, who also directed and co-produced, and Sean Messler, who's also a co-producer. I was like, let me try. Give me a crack at this script. Let me try and prove it to you that I think I can make this work. You know, it was also important to all of us as well that there was a cohesion to it. It's the same DP, Ryan Valdez, throughout.
Okay.
Same composer, Andrew Scott Bell. So I think I felt like we still got to touch and play in all of those genres while still making it feel.
You really did.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Your DP was excellent.
Thank you. He's great. Ryan Valdez, just a delightful person. He's like a joy to be around, and he's incredibly talented.
Aw, that's so great. I just love when you're doing like an indie thing, but you're still surrounded by like the most talented people, you know, and it's hard to get both sometimes.
Right. We kept hoping we could kind of court people with our charm and, you know, and the content. We hoped that the script was appealing enough to get our friends on board. And I think almost the entire cast is people we know. Which, when you're doing low budget, you're kind of like, hey, I'm going to abuse you a little bit. You want to create a safe environment, but it's also added to, I think, the safety by everybody being already friends and comfortable with each other. And there's just something so fun about making movies with your friends.
Absolutely. Yeah, I recently made a short film, and it's not horror. It's like dramedy, I guess. And that was with him and a bunch of my friends, and like it was just so nice, and everyone was just like smiling and laughing and joking between takes and everything, and It was just...
Yeah, you don't have to, like, worry as much about, like, being on between the takes.
Mm-hmm. So, I was snooping on your IMDb, and I noticed there's quite a bit of horror in your repertoire. What led you down the horror path? Like, what's your horror origin story?
I feel like I didn't know there was such, like, a community around it. I, moved to LA like everybody else. I'm an actor like everybody else. Looking for work like everybody else. Through a friend of mine, Jim Hemphill, who is a filmmaker and a critic, who actually, he started out making a horror film.
Oh.
So I kind of, like, met this group of people and was kind of, like, on the outer skirts of it, but was like, okay.
Right.
And he made this dramedy a couple years later and hired a lot of, like, people from this horror community, even though it was just, like, this kind of dramedy.
Yeah.
So through that, I met Buzz Wallach, who is now my husband.
Aww.
And he had always been really encouraging of me to write, and I started writing comedy, and then I was like, oh, this market's oversaturated, and
I've been there.
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And then he was like, will you write me a horror short? And I was like, I can't write horror. Like, what? And he's like, it's the same thing. You write comedy. It's a scare is the same setup as a joke, and you write jokes. Great. So
Yeah.
just think of it that way.
There's this weird parallel between the two.
100%.
Yeah.
The same way you build suspense is the same way you lead up to a joke. Same with, like, a circle back or, like, a, the rule of threes. I think it's exactly the same in horror.
Yes.
Which is really cool. And like, there's something cool just emotionally about it, because the other side of, like, crying and fear is laughter.
Yes.
Or you laugh when you're scared. I mean, there's so much, I think, that they both kind of combine.
Totally.
And then a couple years ago, like, the very start of probably the pandemic, it's sad that's, like, how we mark time now. Buzz and I started a filmmaker accountability group called Just Scare Me, where you have to make a horror short. You have 3 months. If you don't do it by the end of the 3 months, you have to pay the group $100.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that really, like, sharpened the tools for me.
I don't have $100.
Yeah. And even if I did, like, I don't want to give it to you people.
Right.
So
I hope this isn't a stupid question. Would you say it's easier or harder to write an anthology versus a feature?
they all come with different challenges. This one was challenging because I was writing with other writers.
Sure.
I, for a period of time, wrote with a partner. And that was just, it's such a different thing. Like, we bounced ideas off each other. We always sat together while writing. It was, so, like, it wasn't like I hadn't written with other people before. But because I wasn't the sole, I'm going to sound like an egomaniac, because I wasn't the sole writer. It's always hard when you're working with someone else's work. You want to maintain the integrity of what they, what they want to say, what they want to do. There had to be rules, particularly in this script.
Right.
And there had to be some level of cohesion. We didn't want it to just be like, oh, well, here's the one that feels totally out of place.
Yeah.
So it was interesting. It was a really interesting exercise for me. Also, with short form in an anthology, you have to have a beginning, middle, and end in each segment, which is really challenging.
Yeah.
Versus long form, you like, those beats fall into place where they fall into place, as they in a lot of ways naturally do.
Yeah.
So that was a big challenge. Thankfully, like, I felt lucky that I had already written a lot of short form horror.
Nice.
It was kind of like I was primed to do it, but then it still also had to live within this larger world of a bigger script. So it really was cool. It felt like I got to kind of marry the two things that I had done before. So I wouldn't say one's necessarily harder than the other. They all come with their own challenges. Also, too, like, it is nice writing with other people because you have almost like a constant editor. Versus, like, you can finish your entire feature and then wait months for someone to read or give notes, and that's totally understandable.
It's just the process.
It's just the process, right?
Yeah.
But then it's like, you're so excited. You're like, you want feedback on this feature that you just did, but it's also a feature, so it's gonna take people a while to get back to you. Whereas in this kind of like format, this anthology format, it was quick, and working with other writers, working with Buzz and Sean, it was really quick to be able to be like, boom, here's your notes.
Yeah.
Almost right away.
I feel like that's so much more helpful.
Yeah.
I love that there was a mix of physical and virtual effects. Who did the practical effects and who did the virtual, and tell me about that process.
So Liz McGrath did our creature effects.
Okay.
And we found her actually through Krista Collins, who is also in the movie. She's the star of Acting Crash.
Yes.
So found her. I mean, she was also incredible to work with. And then our makeup and special effects were Caroline Moore and Chelsea. I'm gonna butcher her last name, Talpia.
Talpia.
And we found them through Ryan Valdez.
Oh.
They were recommended by him. So
wow.
It was really tight knit. Almost everybody we worked with had worked with somebody else before, knew someone else before.
Oh my God.
And some of that just was like intentional in that I think everyone's kind of overly heavy visual effects.
Yes.
Some of that was money.
Mm-hmm.
It's just sometimes cheaper to do the practical.
Yeah. And sometimes it's cheaper to do the virtual.
Yeah, sometimes.
Which is weird.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, After Effects and a lot of these programs have become really accessible.
Right.
And if you know how to do it, Ryan Valdez, who actually did ours, the smoke on.
Yes.
Mm-hmm,
yeah.
And like, I think literally every VFX was done by him.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
So I mean.
Yeah.
Really
impressive.
It was
done really well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, he did a great job.
I really liked that character. I call him Mysterious Man in my head. I don't know if that... I don't think that was his name.
He didn't have him. We called him the Seeker.
Seeker, yes. But every time he appeared, I was like, ooh, so spooky.
Watching the footage before he has that smoke, you're just like, oh, there's that guy again.
That's really funny. He's just standing there.
Yeah, oh, there's that creeper at the end of the hall. And the smoke really, up the ante.
Really does something.
Yeah.
But my personal favorite, because it caught me so off guard, was the creature in Laundry Day. And I don't want to say what it is, because that totally gives it away. But it that was done extremely well. Did that include like some kind of puppeteer with it? How?
Yeah, I mean, it was actually really cool. So it moved, and it's
like on its own.
No, not on its own. So yeah, I'm gonna say she needed to be manipulated and puppeteered. She also had like separate kind of, I don't know what to call them, like monster arms. So when we needed to go in for a close-up and needed more dexterity, like one of those arms could kind of come in and do inflict pain.
Yes.
The way. So yeah, she was built by Liz McGrath. I will send you pictures of what she looks like. Yeah.
That would be great.
It was really cool. The director of that segment, Jonathan Lewis still has her.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I would totally keep that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would I'm so sorry you don't know what we're talking about. But I would like put it up in the corner of a room or something. Yeah. Yeah. See, now you have to watch it because now you're like hooked. What are they talking about? It reminded me of like It's Alive, and it reminded me of The Thing, and like there were just all these different like
that to me in particular was maybe one of the coolest things, because all I wrote in the script was spindly legs, and that the creature makes a specific type of sound.
Yes. Which I hated.
Yeah. And John and Liz like took that from the page and created that with it.
So cool.
Which was just really cool. Like, just as the writer, I was like, you guys go. Go crazy. I mean.
Be free.
Yes, yeah. And what they came up with ended up just being really, really cool.
God, I love that. I just love practical effects. I just think they're the best. I probably shouldn't say, but I do have a favorite.
Oh, no. We love hearing people's favorites.
Oh, really? Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah, we always ask, like, what's your favorite, least favorite? And it's I mean, that's kind of the beauty of an anthology film.
Yeah.
You're supposed to have favorites. You're not, you know, like.
This is true. Because also when you mentioned Trick or Treat, that's like my favorite and least favorite horror movie because it has some of the best scenes and it has my least favorite scene.
What's your least favorite one?
The kid that throws up the candy. Because I can't do vomit.
Oh.
I just, like, even, like, when, you know, the kids vomit on Bob's Burgers or something, I'm like, oh, God,
you can't even
stop.
do animated vomit.
No. But that, oh, God, it makes me sick. It makes me sick just thinking about it. My favorite was Need Anything?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Starring Fina Sanchez and Clark Wolf. And I would love to meet Clark Wolf. I loved Clark's character, Belinda. Mm-hmm. I loved that we see her previously in one of the other segments, like on a YouTube kind of video.
Yep.
And then we see her in like a hallway, and she's like the, I want to say like the annoying neighbor.
Oh, totally.
Like, can you keep it down?
Yeah.
And then she has her own segment with Fina, and again, not to give anything away, but they're roommates. And things don't go well. That was my favorite, I think, just because they had such fleshed out characters, you know, for being such a short segment. And also I'm biased because I know Fina, obviously. And
she's a joy to watch.
Her
and Clark are just lovely to watch. You're really engaged with them as actors.
Engaged, yes. But also, more than anything, I just love over-the-top body horror. Mm-hmm. And that encompasses so much of that. And I loved it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, that one's interesting. We knew we wanted Clark and Fina to play those roles. Nice. Essentially, we wrote it with them in mind. We also knew it had to be people that knew each other in some sort of capacity because we knew how hands-on it was going to be.
Yep.
So, the interesting thing about that, Need Anything was a short... that Buzz and I made, starring me and Miranda Cover, who is also in another segment of.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
We did Film Quest with it. We had a little run with that short.
Yeah.
So when we were coming together to do Tenants, is there any of our work just to make it kind of easier that we could repurpose?
Yeah.
Got a little bit more money now.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Buzz was like, well, we could do Need Anything, and then I think Sean was like, yeah, but let's make it funny.
Yeah.
And Buzz was like, the original was like this really Hitchcockian kind of thriller. He's like, I still want that kind of Hitchcock suspense. Mm-hmm. And I was like, you can't do both. And then he did. And he totally proved me wrong.
Completely successful.
I was like, there's no way. You're not going to be able to pull this off. So yeah, that one, it was really interesting. It was interesting to see something we had already done be kind of redone.
Yeah.
But in just like a different context. And yeah, Clark and Fina are just both fantastic in it. It's balls to the wall, super fun. It's kind of like the placement of that one as well. Like as the character I play, Joni, is kind of like going through the apartment, the stories get bigger and crazier and crazier and crazier. So it was like kind of the perfect one to be the one before the end.
I thought it was perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah. I thought the placement of each of the segments was just so perfectly done.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
That's always such a struggle. You don't want to lose someone. You don't want to, go too big in the beginning.
Yeah. And then... do you have a favorite? Are you allowed to say?
Do I have a favorite?
Is it yours?
It's mine.
It's mine.
No, I like probably like mine the least. Just like total actor, like and it's the one I watch with the most. Like I should have done that, or I should have done this, or I should have,
Yeah.
I probably like Hoarder the best.
That one's really good.
It's whimsical, a little more fantasy.
Definitely.
Which is something I love. Miles Cranford and Aquadanzo just are heart-wrenchingly good in it.
Yeah.
I can't take my
just
eyes
so
off
sad.
them. Yeah. I know. Yeah, it's heartbreaking. And the production design of that was crazy. Laura Johnson she's also so incredible. There's so many Easter eggs. Like, in Laundry Day, if you look at the board behind Tara Erickson, who's the star of that one, there's like notices for Belinda. Like, she can help you with yoga or some dumb thing.
Sure.
Yeah. There's like just so many Easter eggs of like the other tenants in the building
Yeah.
I just thought it's like little touches like that. They're just so brilliant.
Yes. Yeah, I love stuff like that. I feel like it makes the audience feel like they're a part of it.
Yeah.
Because when they catch it, they're like, oh, yeah.
Look at that cool thing I got.
Yeah.
I love world building. I think it's probably because I'm just like a fantasy dork at heart. And there's always like some big world. So
Totally.
I love creating a lived in world. It was really important. Like you were saying, you see Belinda kind of pop up throughout.
Yeah.
Like, these are people that know each other. They live in this building. They
Yeah.
run into each other at the mail, if they're friendly to one another or not.
Right. What type of roles do you prefer to play? Because you've talked about comedy and fantasy, horror. Like, what kind of role or what kind of genre do you prefer?
I have yet to do a period piece, and that I think would be either a period or some big costume fantasy drama,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
I'm like a dork that goes to the Ren Fair, so
Ooh,
like
I still have not been to a Ren Fair.
girl, you gotta go.
I
We have
know.
maybe the biggest one in the country here too.
Yeah.
And it's the oldest.
Oh, really?
We like invented it.
How old is it?
62 or something, 63.
That is old.
Yeah,
Oh my god,
yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah. And weirdly, our Southern California like pleasure fair is franchised. Like the one that's in Bristol, Wisconsin. I grew up in Illinois, so I used to grow up going to the Bristol Fair.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like franchised by it's like the same company.
Interesting.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
So I would imagine they have them at other places as well, but
Right.
the fair's great.
That would be great. Well, especially seeing you in such a cute outfit like this.
Thank you.
I feel like you should be in a period
Thank
piece.
you. Thank you. Yeah.
Are you going to write one? Write yourself into one?
I thought about it. They're really expensive to do.
Oh, that's true.
And I don't think they make a lot of money. I met with a very fancy agent once trying to get repped, and she was like, well, what do you want to write? And I was like, well, I'd love to challenge myself at some point and do a period piece. Like, the dialogue, it's just, I've never done it. So it would be really cool. And she was like, no, those don't make any money. I was like, okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good to know.
I mean, I don't know. I beg to differ because I feel like Robert Eggers does period pieces.
Right.
And obviously those do very well.
I'm like, hi, we all saw Titanic. And that's a period piece.
This is true. This is very true.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I
so
disagree.
I guess I have to write my Titanic.
I think you do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Just name it a different boat.
Yeah. Titanic too. It's fine.
Yeah. So what inspired your segment specifically? It's called You're Not Supposed to Be Here.
So we kept struggling with how to figure out the wraparound. And everything just kept being like, yeah, I guess. Like, okay, I'll get to writing it. I had a dream one night that I woke up in an amniotic sac.
Oh my.
Yeah, it was very, very weird dream. Yeah. You know those dreams where you're like falling? It was like a falling dream, and then I woke up in the dream, which is weird that I didn't actually wake up. Because normally you wake up.
Yeah.
And I was in this sack.
Ew.
And it was really gross. It was a really gross dream. It was really weird. But I woke up and I was like, Buzz, oh my God, I have the wraparound. And he was like, okay. And I was like, I had this dream. I woke up in a sack, and he was like, that's fucking awesome. Sorry, I don't know if I can swear.
No, you can.
And he was like, that's so cool. What more do we do with it though?
Right.
And I was like, yeah, I'll figure it out. I just was like, okay, why is she in the sack? Mm-hmm. Where is she? What's going to happen? How does this actually fit into this world other than it just being cool imagery, which Caroline and Chelsea crushed it. I mean,
oh yeah.
That thing was so cool. It was essentially just like a giant piece of spandex that they put I did not think it was going to be possible to do.
I was curious what that was.
Yeah. So a lot of people asked if it's latex, and they were like, it's going to be so much money if we do latex.
Right.
So they were like, we think we can do it though. And so they did a bunch of tests in their apartment. They're the best. So it's essentially just like really thin spandex, flesh colored, that was just covered in goop, like homemade slime. And then when it was time for me to come out and break through, they just cut the tiniest little hole.
Yeah.
You couldn't see it, so I was able to stick my hand through.
Yeah.
It was so funny. It was like my first day, I think, working with them, and I'm standing in a parking garage, and they are just covering me in slime.
Oh, God.
So I was like, hi, good to meet you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah. If you get to a certain age or a certain point in your life, most people can kind of look at it and think, like, it wasn't supposed to be this way.
Right.
Like, this isn't how it was supposed to shake out.
Right.
It's kind of a running theme throughout the entirety of the film.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree.
Even the wackiest segments.
Yeah.
And, they're like, well, I'm not supposed to have roommates. And so I just kind of thought, well, what would be the most, like, how do I make this work in a larger, more cinematic way and maintain a kind of running narrative? That was like, I had to keep the kind of story going with that one as well. Which made it a challenge to maintain some sort of interest in it and interest in Joni as a character and what she's doing, but I still had to introduce these other stories.
Sure, yeah.
So
yeah, at the same time.
Yeah, so she had kind of, in my mind, like the ultimate, it wasn't supposed to be this way.
Yeah.
And she was willing to, tear a hole in the fabric of reality to make it not that way.
Yeah. I really loved her story. I just thought
you.
that was really sweet. Again, I don't want to spoil anything, but she just has a really sweet moment at the end with someone close to her. And I don't know. I really love when horror is horror and gross and scary and thrilling and also like touches your heartstrings.
Well, and I think that's what I love about it, is that it can do both.
Yeah.
There's so much you can do within the world of it that can be layered in a way that is... And I think just as, like, humans, we like to be scared.
Yeah.
I love being scared.
Oh, absolutely.
And so I think when you can kind of get that 1-2 punch of making you feel scared and sad or empathetic or...
Absolutely.
I feel like then I've hopefully done my job as a writer and as an actor.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for just sitting here and chatting with me and
Thank you for
being so lovely.
Thank you so much for having me, and
of course.
Thank you for being so lovely.
Oh, stop. You've been watching The Horror Babe Show with Mary O'Neill. Make sure to keep an eye out for Tenants, available we'll see where. But yeah, follow Mary to keep updated on that. Follow me. You know why. Bye, babe. Well, that's it from me and Mary. Hope you enjoyed this week's Filmmaker Friday. Tune in every Friday for a new Filmmaker interview episode. You can watch Tenants on Mubi starting March 15th, or the VOD link is in the description below. Definitely give Tenants a watch. It's a must. Bye, babe.